Okay, so we're officially started on the Wednesday, July 10th, 2019 koha-US meeting. So the first thing on the agenda is announcements. And I have a note here that according to Facebook, today is Ed's birthday. So happy birthday, Ed. Should we sing?
No.
See, now everybody is really happy I didn't bring a trombone to work.
I'm always happy when you don't bring a trombone to work, George. At least on days we're meeting.
Yeah, I've thought about getting bagpipes and going out, let's say, to a farmer's market and putting up a sign. If you don't pay me, I'll start playing.
Any other announcements other than happy birthday, Ed? Is anybody doing anything interesting in the next month or so? That looks like a no. Between now and the next time we meet, I'm going to actually go to the Kansas Linux Fest, and Robin recommended that I go and just to go to the conference. And when I looked at their registration page, it had requirements and ideas for presentations, and I read it, and it's like, I could do a presentation there. And so I'm speaking about Koha at the Kansas Linux Fest, and it'll be right before our August meeting. So I think Bywater has their Utah summit scheduled for sometime in October. I'm not sure the exact dates of that, but anybody in the Utah, Idaho, Colorado area, there's that going on. I don't know if there's anything else to announce, anything interesting. I did make a change to the koha-US pages with the bug report page. But I'll talk about that when we get down to open discussion bugs. But I made a few minor changes there to make it more sustainable to talk about bugs there. So if there aren't any other announcements, I guess we can jump on to conference updates. You want to jump in there, Lizette?
Yeah, so registration is open for our conference in September. If you haven't seen I think I personally have gotten like 12 emails about it, but that's because I'm on the list. A lot of the list is myself and also as the vice president, because I know like I sent it out to the Koha list, our koha-US list, and Jesse at Bywater also sent out a couple times things about that registration was open, and it was that it was going to be open soon was in the Koha newsletter, the most recent one. So you can register on our website, koha-us.org. We also have up there a draft of the schedule, which is, I mean, it's full. It's pretty, we're doing a lot. We have 2 tracks this year. I'll just put actually a link to both the page, the conference page, and to our draft schedule as well. In there, we've got 2 whole days of 2 tracks and then 2 workshop days, and we're doing a number of presentations on those days as well. We've got confirmation from all our people. Our keynote speaker is going to be Joe Ransom, who you may remember, she worked at the library trust that originally started, or the first one that used Koha, and a few years ago she came through and she did like a world tour of Koha libraries, and so she's going to be presenting like on Zoom or however we end up doing.
Joe said she was going to try. She said she might come to Colorado, but I think it's more likely that she will be presenting on a big screen through Zoom or something.
Which is also why our keynote is at 1 in the afternoon, even though the conference starts at 8:30, because we didn't want her to have to present at like 2 in the morning.
She wouldn't present at 2
Well,
in the
yes, she wouldn't present at 2 in the morning. And we also wouldn't have wanted her to, because she would have been, you know,
I don't know about that.
tired. Fair enough. Okay, so you can check out our schedule and register on the website. We also have room blocks at 2 hotels. The last day to book the rates are, one of the hotels is August 17th and the other one is August 27th. And so you've still got a little over a month on both of those. And that's our register now for the conference. Does anyone have any questions about the conference?
Is everybody going to be there? Right on. The next thing on the agenda is voting results.
Yes. So
for development.
For our development voting, we've done our first cycle of voting now. It took a while and we learned some stuff. And the winner was the $3,000 for making the holds work a little bit better, basically, or holds display a little bit better. So here's my example. Here it'll say like, here's the item level hold placed for delivery at Moscow, hold for this patron. But it'll show that even if that's not the next hold, if that's the first item level hold on that item, even if it's like 30th on the holds list, it's still always going to show there. So the development that won was to fix that, so it'll only show that highlighted part if that's the next hold on that item. And so it was quoted at $3,000, and the person who submitted it thought that their organization might co-sponsor it. And so we're just waiting for, I think they were supposed to be meeting early this month, and he's not here. So
who was the possible co-sponsor? Was it Fargo?
CIN.
Oh, CIN, Christopher, okay.
Yeah, and he's not here. So, but I think that they were going to meet yesterday because we were going to have an INLG meeting, maybe. That's when they wanted to do it, and then it didn't end up working out. So I think they were going to meet, and I got an email from him this morning about something else, so I will check with him. And then if they aren't going to co-sponsor it, then we'll seek other co-sponsors and look for other sources of funding, since we've got about, I believe it was $1,800 was the line in the budget for it, and it's $1,200 more than that. So we'll keep you up to date as we continue with that.
What was the bug number on that, Lizette?
Oh, let me find it. I will find it and put it in the chat.
Okay, that'd be great. Okay, so the next thing on the agenda here is committee reports, so conference committee. Why don't we, well, Lizette's looking for that, why don't we jump ahead to Todd, fundraising committee.
The fundraising committee met last month. We discussed some opportunities that are available in Grand Station. Everybody's reviewing that in preparation for this month's meeting. I sent out more information yesterday in regards to Knight Foundation, which is located out of Miami. They seem to be open to a lot of different ideas. So I've asked everybody just to give us some information, you know, look over the site, look over the different opportunities that are available for libraries, and for us to, you know, start to wax a little creative and seeing how we can make a proposal to them. In making a proposal, they're kind of limited in the number of characters. They want ideas, and they want to know the activities. So the purpose would be like 250 characters. So they want to keep it brief. So we want to do something succinct. And then the activity is limited to 750 characters. So I kind of like that. So I'm looking forward to submitting something to Knight Foundation and seeing if what we're doing interests them and if we can work together. So that's about it currently.
Okay, cool. Is this the same Knight Foundation that Michael Knight worked for that developed the kit? Or is that a different Knight?
I'm not really sure. I know after living in South Florida for a number of years, the James Knight Center, there were a number of different Knights, and even the newspaper where I grew up in Boca Raton, it was by the Knights. So kind of affiliated with them, but I don't know if they, yeah.
Okay.
The only thing that I can say about the Knight Foundation, and just because I know about this, that they have given this grant to libraries before. Rapid City Public got it several years ago to create the Black Hills Knowledge Network, which was just an
cool.
aggregation of local news sources and whatnot to be the sort of one-stop shop for government information and news stuff. So that was, I don't know if it's still in existence. It was a long time ago that happened. So
it was a couple of brothers who started they started a media empire way back in the day, and they've, I guess, made it their mission even since they passed away to make sure that the world, or at least the U.S., benefits from a trust that they have. So
actually, I actually know who they are now that you say two brothers. So, okay, Lizette, are you ready for the conference committee report?
Well,
or is there anything beyond what we already talked about?
We are working also, as we're doing this conference, on creating a good timeline for future conferences.
Right.
And we'll talk about that. We're working on that, and we will also talk about that at the conference. We're doing two, the board or the committee chairs are doing two, like what the committees have been up to sessions. So there'll be like 3 in one of them and 3 in the other one to let you guys know what we've been doing. And at conference committee, we're gonna have, by that point, we're gonna have a timeline ready so that people can hit the ground running for planning the 2020 conference.
I would say if anybody is interested in being on the conference committee for 2020, being ready to say, I want to do this next year at the conference in September would be excellent, because we want to start the process of picking a location like in December this year instead of waiting until, we got off track this year because last year we kind of piggybacked everything with the worldwide organization. So
I can tell you that Huntsville is interested in hosting. I have a 1.5 pages of notes and trying to figure out because we've never done this before, and trying to figure out what we can do. So Lizette, as soon as you have that worksheet thing, gimme, please. Because we're basing a lot on assumptions right now, and can't really firm anything up with that. So.
All right, so that gives 2 libraries that really want to host it next year. Good competition.
I'm actually thinking I'll tell Robin not to dust off the proposal for Lawrence this next year, because we've proposed Lawrence as a location, I think 5 times, and 5 out of 6 times, and nobody's ever voted for Kansas. So we might give it a rest this year.
Yeah, I voted for Kansas.
We got rockets, man. We got rockets.
We have extreme heat and high humidity and tornadoes. So as far as I'm concerned,
but also
we've got that, and we've got politicians, but we've got free museums. And no, I don't want to organize a conference.
Okay. If that covers the conference committee, the next thing on here is development committee. And did we cover all of that?
Yeah, I just put the bug in the chat.
Cool.
for the one that won. And there's a screenshot on there that Christopher put in also of the misleading hold info.
Cool.
Highlighted. So that's the only other piece from the development committee right now.
Lizette, I have a really quick question, and I've not scrolled through this whole bug discussion. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly, because it's the next item level hold, but arguably isn't that the next hold? Because it's
No.
item level holds?
Not if there's record level holds above it on the holds queue. Those ones will get filled before the item level hold.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because of the priority. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
Oops, I lost everybody. Okay, well then the next thing on the list is the education committee.
And we're still working on updating the website with additional educational tools. Last month there was a meeting with the International Committee of Educators. They had a first meeting, and a couple members went to that and talked about just different resources that are out there, and showed off our website to the international educators, many of whom hadn't seen it yet, and they thought
And
it
they
was
all
cool.
went, ooh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool.
And so we're just kind of plugging along there, and we have our next meeting is next week.
And Todd talked about fundraising, so that leaves John.
There's a link to the Finance Committee report in the agenda. It's quiet right now. We're busy in the midst of getting everything ready for the conference. And so over the course of the next 3 months, pretty much all of our financial activity will be related to conference income, and to a much lesser extent, conference expenditures. Most of the expenditures, of course, will come in September during the conference proper. Unlike past years, we actually have a debit card now that the organization can use. So hopefully there will be a lot less reimbursing going on than took place in 2017, when we did not have that option readily available at our disposal. Perhaps the biggest thing to note in this report, which basically encapsulates the first half of the year with a more detailed report on that activity coming next month, is the fact that we have 60 full-year members. The original budget for this year, which was drafted with only really a year's worth of institutional knowledge before that, assumed that we'd end the year with 60 members, 40 of those being full-year members and 15 of them being half-year. The fact that we've got 60 full-year members is really great, and really is helping to boost the amount of income that we've gotten from memberships substantially. In fact, I think the final number of full-year memberships will be 63. I'd sent out an invoice to somebody for 3 full-year memberships, and that money had not yet been received. I've gotten that money now. It just arrived the other day. So I think we'll end up with 63 full-year memberships, and we've had one person thus far join the organization as part of the I'm not a member of koha-US, but I'm interested in joining at this time option, which is available with conference registration. Let's see here. That's pretty much about it. I mean, there's not a whole lot going out. We've got stuff coming in. That's good. Once the development committee has finalized its selection of that option, I'll be working with Lizette to make sure that our portion of the funding for that development will be transferred over and successfully handled.
All right, I think that covers all the committees then. So let me pull up koha-US website. I guess it's let me put this in the chat box. Oops. So if we go to koha-us.org/bugs, Jason had put together this site, all the bugs that we normally talk about, he had gone through and created a spreadsheet. And what we came up with as an easier way to tracking bugs is if I created an account called Bugzilla at koha-US.org, and I just went through and I added Bugzilla at koha-US.org to the CC list on all of the bugs that we talk about regularly. So that now if you, I've got an RSS feed at koha-US.org/bugs that'll show us the 20 most recently changed bugs that we've talked about. And there's a link there that you can click on to go and get the full list. There were 26 bugs that Jason had found that we discussed in the last, I don't know how far back Jason looked, but that had been come up in discussions and in our minutes.
I think
so
I went
I put
back 2 years. So
2 years.
yeah,
Wow, that sounds exhaustingly dull.
it was so exciting.
But now there's an easy way to keep track of the bugs that we've been talking about, and I just added the one that Lizette put in the chat to that list too, so that we're on the CSC list for the one that we actually might spawn, the one that we're probably going to co-sponsor, the 20948. So now it's easy to keep track of those if anybody wants to keep track of the bugs that we've actually been talking about. Because sometimes I find that happens where we talk about a bug now, and then in 3 months it might come up again as, hey, have we ever talked about this before? So that's easier to find the ones we've actually talked about. So are there any other bugs that we should be talking about? There was actually one that I talked about with Bywater earlier today, and I did not put it on the list yet. Let me see if I can find it real quick. People have probably noticed this if you've ever been checking in books, is sometimes the check-in history table disappears.
Yep.
And there was a bug that Owen opened that I added some clarification to, and if I can find the bug number, which I'm not having a lot of luck on here. Here it is. Well, that's the RT number. Let me go to RT then. And
because it was related, we found it the same, or we ran across it at the same time we ran across the bug that I think either has been fixed or we just got hot patched for, which cleared the back date on a transit. Like you'd be doing book drop check-in.
Yeah, that's a different one. I know that one too.
But at the same time, it was also clearing the history if you had a transit.
So this one I think it looks like it's 23145, and let me put that in the chat window. It's the second time you check something in, and it gives you the first time it gives you the ship this someplace else message, and then the second time, and then when you hit OK, it reloads the page and it reloads the check-in history table, and then the second time you do it, it loads that this item was supposed to be shipped someplace else. That's when you click OK on that one, it clears the whole table. And so that's the bug for that is 23145. And I just added Bugzilla at koha-US.org as CC on that. But that's the ticket that's been open for that. It's the wrong transfer modal is the ID number of that pop-up window. And whenever it clears the whole table. So, and it seems like this might happen when you do holds sometimes too, but this one was easy to identify. So,
related to that, because it's related to transfers, I'm going to link it here. We are dealing with bug 23129, where when you initiate a transfer for whatever reason, the holding branch gets updated to the branch it's going to, not the branch that you just checked it in at, which is super confusing for our folks. So yeah, it needs sign off. So if anybody, I haven't had a chance yet. I just finished monthly stats. So if somebody wants to go play with this in a sandbox and help get it pushed down the road, I would greatly appreciate it. And so would my staff. So it's a fun one.
Okay. I suppose that would be weird. I'm just looking at it.
Yeah, and we have a large number of weird items that are stuck in transit and already. And so this just complicates those things because it's not, Koha's not saying where it actually is. It's time traveling, which you don't appreciate doing.
Oh, you've all heard of Schrodinger's catalog.
Schrodinger's transfer list. Yeah, it could be here, it could be there. You never know. Oh.
Any other bugs that people are dealing with that are weird? The weird ones are my favorites.
This isn't really a bug, but it's something I ran into while doing what I had hoped would have been a relatively insignificant upgrade. I was upgrading from 1805.05 to 1805.14 and broke my entire system because all of a sudden the Prol packages were completely uninstalled for my system. Then when I tried to reinstall them, it said they're not in any repository. Fortunately for me, I'd taken a machine snapshot before I'd started any of this, so I panicked and went back to that snapshot and have not investigated further, but it was a real, oh my God, what have I just done, even though it should not have been any problem whatsoever. It wasn't like I was going from 1805 to 1905 or even any sort of major version upgrade. It was just from 1805.05 to 1805.14, but it significantly broke my system to the point that I had to actually do a system restore from a previous snapshot image. And I have not tried to replicate this yet on my test server, which is actually running 1811. But I was just horrified. And that's what I get for trying to do something at 4:30 on Friday afternoon after taking Thursday off.
You know, one of the bugs that we're already following, I'll put this one in the chat window too, is 11677. This is one that I think everybody, I think everybody's aware of. Where when you're doing a search in the catalog, there's the link that says show only available items. And if any one item on any of the biblios you're looking at is checked out or not available, it will hide the whole record. So, which makes the show only available items kind of problematic. And so this bug ticket on Bugzilla, some of the discussion is for why don't we fix this? And that's about half of the discussion is why doesn't somebody fix this? And the other half of the discussion is why don't we just, if it doesn't work right, why don't we just remove it? The last updated on it though was Kyle Hall in February said that now that we've added a new availability index, this could be used to fix this bug. But then since then, it doesn't look like there's been any action or discussion on it. So I was thinking with that one, if everybody chimed in and made comments on it, maybe somebody would take a closer look at it.
This was reported back in 2014.
Yeah. I think you're on this bug. I think you're on here somewhere. I know Ed is. Yeah, this is a very old bug, and it's been a problem for all that time. And I can swear that we've discussed this one. Well, it was on the list of bugs that we've discussed in the past, which is why we're already on the Bugzilla at koha-US.org is already on the CC list. And I guess you're not on here. I thought you were on here, Christopher. But
I am now. I just griped about it.
Yeah, but if everybody goes on and gripes about it, maybe somebody will actually do something about it.
I am so surprised because this is like standard functionality for OPACs.
Yeah, and it doesn't work.
Right? And so why has it been sitting for 3 years? Oh.
Well, here's your big chance to complain about it.
Everybody gripe about it right now.
Yeah, if we all do it right now, people will know we're having a meeting.
Crash Bugzilla. And they'll wonder why. Oh, maybe we should fix this.
I'll get 500 emails.
Well, I'm glad I brought that one up because apparently not as many people knew about it as I thought they did.
So, yes, thank you. So my question with this availability index, like, because Kyle gives no additional information, like, do we have a timeline for that? Is that just a vague development, like the thing they're doing with the deleted records thing? Or
I don't know. Let me look at...
Because, I mean, like, I can write a paragraph and be snarky and also not helpful. Or I could be helpful.
Well, I'm looking here to see if there's anything here that says anything about availability index.
It's the last comment from Kyle.
Yeah, well, I just did a search in Bugzilla to see if there's anything else in Bugzilla that
If Tomas is working on it, it's probably an API thing.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know that. That's a hunch.
Well, I think we should all get in there and comment on, what is that, 11677. And then we can let everybody know that we really would like this to be fixed. At some point in 2014, somebody did write a patch for it that never, that I don't know whatever happened to it. There's a lot of comments on here. There's a lot of discussion, and I don't think that that bug was ever, that ever went anywhere. Somebody created a ticket, it looks like in 2018, for just removing the feature. That's where the other discussion is.
And again, I mean, no, it's a useful feature. It's a standard feature. It should
I agree.
work.
Yeah, let me tell you.
Honestly, the fact that it's been sitting here for 3 years, I'm going to say this in my comment, is shameful.
I didn't know it was broken.
I didn't either.
It was something that I had to explain when I was training, that it never really worked. And it was very frustrating to stand up there while training people, telling them, oh, this button here doesn't really work.
You were late, Christopher. It's Ed's birthday. We talked about that at the beginning. So now you know. That's why he can be so angry.
I was in a great mood till you brought that bug up.
Well, are there any other bugs we can bring up to make people angry? There's got to be at least one out there somewhere, right?
I'm just frustrated with the fines and fees in general. After we upgraded, we've got options to void. We've got options to apply credits that are just sitting there, and staff half the time don't know what they're supposed to do because it's just so confusing. And then credits that apply when you don't want them to, credits that apply when you don't apply when you do want them to. There's a bug out there where if certain circumstances happen, you'll get double fined. There's a bug out there that will, if a patron has a fee for a lost item and somebody has a write-off on the same item, it won't remove the lost fee if the item is returned. Just weird stuff. Crazy.
Stop charging fines. That solves it.
Oh, we have. And we're getting an earful about that too, because now when patrons have overdues, they're blocked immediately. And in this transition, we're letting patrons know about that, but we're overriding the block so that they can check some stuff out, because they may have dumped 50 books in the book drop, come to check out 50 more books. Now we got to override every single item, and that's annoying in itself. It'd be nice if there was a session override, so that you don't have to override every single item that they check out.
We just end up renewing everything.
That's what I was going to say. That's the trick I learned a long time ago. Is if things are in the book drop, you just renew everything on their account.
Yeah, if they haven't already renewed.
Then you override the renewals. Let's see. It seems like I know there were some other bugs here that were annoying. Actually, there's one here that I don't know if any, I think this one has been blocked. I think that it's in a position where it's a weird one too. There's that message on it's 19919. There's a message when a patron pays for an item. On the details page for that item, it will say paid for by, and it'll have the patron's name in there. I actually have that data. I have some jQuery somewhere that hides that data from the screen. But there's a bug there, 19919 is the bug that's related to that. And people have tried to patch that. Some libraries still want that data there, and what has been suggested is finding ways to link the data rather than having it stored in the item record, because that's what happens now, is paid for by patron name is actually stored in the item record once somebody pays for it. And I think that the bug that failed QA most recently was just a way of linking it to the patron record with a borrower number instead of putting the actual, sticking that information in there as a note.
Well,
but I don't know how many people are aware of that one and what's going on with that bug. Sorry,
the other tricky part with that one is that it's not just if they pay for the item. If they say return the item and you write off the lost item fee that was automatically charged, it also marks that it was paid for by them in the same field.
Okay. But that's
actually when we started noticing it, was when we did that. And then it showed up and we said, that's not right.
That's one it wouldn't hurt that if a lot of people jumped in and complained about that one too. None of these, every one of these people can jump in and complain about, or if anybody wants to throw money at one, that's always another option. There's another one on here I've mentioned before. This one is 20439. If you're adding SMS providers, they don't add, the SMS providers list doesn't sort alphabetically. Yeah. So if you add several and then a month later you go in and add something else that starts with an A, it's going to be at the bottom of the list, which is completely counterintuitive for everything else. Well, from everything else in every system everywhere.
Yeah. Christopher put another one in the chat, 22868, which is actually one I reported. Separate permissions for manage purchase suggestions and enter purchase suggestions, because in 1811 they fixed that technically everyone had access. If you had all the Circ staff, anyone who had catalog access could put in purchase suggestions, but they didn't see how many purchase suggestions there were unless they had acquisitions privileges. And now there's a privilege for managing purchase suggestions, but if you turn it off, your Circ staff can't enter in purchase suggestions. And so, which is a problem for us, because we have staff enter in the purchase suggestions for patrons who don't use the computers. We don't use paper slips anymore, but we don't want everyone just going in and editing them and
Right.
marking them as managed or whatever. So that's 22868. And there's been a little bit of discussion, but
I ended up putting in a jQuery to hide that that link on the main page unless it's certain people that are logged in.
that's what we did here too.
So
Anybody else? Oh, Jason's going to jump in and complain. Cool.
sure, I have one. After the upgrade, we had a lot of unrest surrounding this transfer modal, the please return to whatever modal, because it used to be just a box at the top. And when it became a modal, it completely blocked out the screen when people were checking things in. The day after our upgrade, we had a situation where a clerk, yeah, you did that. We had a situation where our clerk shelver didn't realize it was doing that, wasn't paying attention, checked in a whole stack of books, shelved them, and they landed on the shelf, still checked out. So I went ahead and just broke that modal because I wanted to avoid situations where the patron would be on the hook rather than the library. So the bug I linked is it's in need sign off right now. It changes the functionality, so it'll be a system preference, whether that is a modal or not. So
I haven't written any more patches since then.
it's okay. It's a
That's
good
okay.
patch, and it's good functionality, but it just doesn't work with our workflow. People, when they saw that print slip button, they thought they had to print something, which we discouraged that slip because it just adds extra paperwork in our workflow. I can see it being beneficial for certain workflows. It just didn't work for us. So.
Actually, I'm looking at this bug, and it looks like somebody's already written a patch to make it a system preference, whether this is a modal or not a modal. It just needs somebody to sign off on it. There was, I actually had a meeting with Bywater this morning online. I tried to test a different patch last week through one of the Bywater sandboxes, and they were all down at that time. So I was going to try and let Bywater know that the sandboxes are down. But if somebody has a development environment set up, a dev box set up, if somebody wanted to jump in and test this, I think having it as a system preference is a great way to have libraries like Christopher that want to keep it as a modal, and I want to keep it as a modal, but then, Jason doesn't want it to be a modal, so that way it gives, the libraries a choice of how they want it to be. But if somebody wants to jump in there and test it, that would solve this problem.
The modal wasn't the huge issue. It was, when you checked in items, so many different things were going on. It was a mess because you'd have modals and you'd have the old interface behind that, which was really weird. And you'd have the old interface with all these weird options on there. It was just crazy. So, I finally said, okay, I'm cleaning this up and finishing something that somebody started. But, I kind of figured, there were going to be a few things that slipped through, and, I invited people to give feedback on this stuff. So this is why it's important to talk about these things. So, you can get feedback as things are being developed, so we don't run into these things in production.
Has anybody else written a patch that everybody else hates?
Oh, not really a hatred thing, but so we got bug fixed last night, and you know how catalogers are. So in the bug fix patch last night, they changed it so the little required star in the mark editor now says the word required, which isn't a big deal unless you zoom in the cataloging editor, and then it forces it down to the next line, and it just looks weird. So that was a fun thing that popped up for me this morning. I added some CSS so it doesn't wrap, and I think they're happy again. And
I was going to say, how many
they're right
notes
over
of
there.
formal reprimand did you get? from your cataloging constituents.
40 lashes. It's okay.
I'm disappointed. I would have expected you to set it so that if you were at a lower resolution, it would have changed back to an asterisk.
I was trying to do it fast,
Well, now that you've got some time, you can refine it.
Most definitely.
Angry catalogers.
I'm looking at this list again to see if there's anything.
Aside from bugs, does anybody have any fun stuff that they've done with Koha?
I'm in the process of updating my hold slip to be using template toolkit instead of jQuery, and jQuery to show like if we want to phone the patron, which we determine it by if they don't have an email address, then we put them in the phone the patron stack. And if they do have an email address, we assume they have email notification turned on and put it on the shelf. And then also, since we have SMS notifications right now those just show up as phone the patrons with an extra line under the phone number that says like, hey, text them instead. They got texted. Just mark them as called and put them on the shelf. And so I'm slowly working on converting all of that into template toolkit so that the SMS patrons will also just be shelved and we don't have to like check to see if they're a text patron or a phone patron. And then, yeah, so that's fun, but it's slow work because there's not a lot of documentation for template toolkit out there. And so when it comes up and says internal server error, when I try printing it, I have to just change it back and go hunting for what the problem might be.
That's an area where I think letting the documentation people know that there should be better documentation for the template toolkit would probably be a good idea. Because I think there is a class of bug now. I think there's a section for bugs for documentation.
I'm not completely sold on the template toolkit yet because it seems like it's more coding than before. I know it's the way it's transitioning, but I wish they would, transition it to where it's point and click to insert things like it is with the old stuff.
That would definitely simplify it. One thing that I like about it is that if you want to like only print a field if it's not blank, like for example, we use the like other names field for nicknames. So like if someone's name is Catherine, but they want to be called Kate, if we call them on the phone, then now it prints Kate in parentheses, but it only prints the parentheses if there's another name. And that was like a lot simpler to do with template toolkit than with jQuery once I figured it out. Like now that I know how to do it that way, it's easier. It took me a little while to figure out how to do it. But it's like a lot less words and troubleshooting. It's just like one line.
I had to revamp our slips because I noticed since the upgrade, we were we had this line in our receipts saying how much people have saved by using the library, and since the upgrade, it just started printing $0. It's like so I had to go and look up Bywater's blog on that and redo that. They're pointing to some fields through I think it's template toolkit. I'm not sure. They're pointing to something a little bit differently than what we had that I got through some emails. So Bywater's is a little bit more accurate in their blog, and they've got a couple different ways to do it. They do have a template toolkit version and a non-template toolkit version, I believe.
Okay, I don't know if this falls into the fun category, but I've been playing around with writing scripts to make setup a little easier. where you have to type in long, complicated lines, and I can never remember if WGET dash is it a 0 or a capital O. So I found a graphical editor and was using XFCE. Just copied, paste, made a script, went to the terminal, ran the script. A lot easier, especially in things where there's just one letter or one thing wrong and you have to type the, or no, you don't, but you have to hit the up arrow and go back and figure out what you did wrong. It's easier this way.
Has anybody else, since they've upgraded to 1811, has anybody turned on the automatic emailed patron receipts for write-offs and payments?
We have. We turned it on and it's worked just fine. We did add and I think Lucas maybe put it on the wiki. We did add some special template toolkit stuff to it so that if it was a PayPal payment, it actually said that. Because before it just was like, here's this thing. And I was like, well, I want to know, patrons should know whether or not it was a cash payment or a credit card payment. And then if it was a PayPal payment, they should know that too. But because those are handled slightly differently in terms of where that information is, we had to do a template thing. I think he put it in the wiki. I don't remember.
Okay. The thing that I've noticed is that we can't customize those on a branch by branch basis. They're the same for, there's no way to individualize it for each library. There's no way to say this library wants to send them and this library doesn't. They're only sent from the system, at the system level, not at the branch level. And what I've determined is the reason for that is because when a fine is created, it records information about where the fine was created. It gives an operator, it put the action logs and the account lines, includes the operator that created the fine and all this other information. But when you accept a payment, there is nothing in the account lines that indicates which operator accepted a payment.
It's not manager ID?
The manager ID is blank for payments in the account lines. At least it is in our system. Yeah, I don't know if that's particular to our system.
Hold on, I have to go look at a report because I don't think it is in ours.
That's what I found. So, but that's the reason that they can't be customized on a branch by branch basis, is because there's nothing in the account line that indicates which branch accepted the payment.
I ran into a similar issue just with the cash register. You can't look up fines, what branch accepted what fines in the cash register, because information is not recorded in there. It's goofy.
I think it's the same issue. And I don't know if there's a bug in Bugzilla for that or not. It's something.
Yeah, maybe there is, because like now, given my report is enter a manager ID and a date, but like I'm looking at, and it's just a select all for account lines since it's my troubleshooting report. But I've got a borrower number, I've got an account lines ID, I've got an account number, I've got a date, I've got an amount, I've got an account type of pay, payment type of cash, amount outstanding 0, timestamp, manager ID. So, which is, borrower number of the staff account.
Right.
So I don't know unless this is just no, it's not a fancy report. So I don't know, maybe we do have a weird patch because we were forked for so long because of our weird accounts rewrite. So, and then came back when account lines became a thing. So yeah, I don't know, because I'm happy to share my reports with you guys, but yeah, I'm sorry it's
ours also, at least in the past, I can't think of a report number to check right now, has tracked that. And I feel like I even saw a bug about separating the notices, putting this receipt into the notices section instead of being hard-coded, but of course now I can't find it.
Martin, you create a lot of reports. Do you add those to the Koha SQL library, or?
Me?
Yeah.
Not always, because sometimes I'm just Frankensteining reports from the library. But I mean, I'm more than happy to go through and see what I've got and what might be useful and not replicative. So sure, yeah.
With some of the detail that you have, I think it'd be beneficial for a lot of people.
Sure. Okay.
She's just hoarding all the good stuff of herself.
I will, but a lot of it is like, for example, I point to because we do the hotspot thing. So we have a report that's hotspots that circulated yesterday and their associated fees, which it's great for us and serves a very specific need. But yeah, it could totally be retooled into, fines paid yesterday at X branch with all that information. And like we have branch specific reports that are cash register reports that run every single day for the previous day, and with totals of how much was written off, how much was paid by cash, how much was paid by check, et cetera, specific to each branch. Now they're tied to that manager ID. So if somebody was logged in as themselves or their selector account or whatever and did a patron transaction in fines, it's not going to show up, and they know that. But yeah, so that's a really easy one to share if that's something that people would use or interested in.
You've got a room full of people here who like to take things and twist them into whatever they want to use them for. So if a lot of the details have already been taken care of and they just have to add some bits and that's be really helpful.
I can do that. I'm writing it down, Todd. I'm writing it down just for you.
Well, I'm running a bad report right now that's probably going to crash my whole system. So,
Fun.
And I'm also seeing every now and then the lights in here are flickering. We're having a storm here, so if I disappear, it might be because the power goes out. And I'm not sure, but I think if I disappear, the whole meeting ends. So.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye. I have to run to my bi-weekly support call. So.
Well, I guess it's 11:30 almost. So. Any other bugs anybody wants to complain about, or should we think about wrapping up on time today? Well, I'm not hearing anybody chiming in with any more bugs, and people are starting to leave. I guess as soon as I said, should we wrap up, people just started jumping off the cliff there.
Started making the assumption.
The next meeting will be the 14th of August. And if nobody else has anything to say, I guess we can wrap it up. Always good to see everybody. Happy birthday again, Ed.
Happy birthday, Ed. Come to koha-US in Pueblo in September. Registration's open.
Some of us are already registered.
Yeah, some of us are already registered. A lot of us that are here actually are already registered. So
I think I may have
Okay. I'll register.
I can point out the ones that haven't.
Bye, Megan.
See you all later.
See ya.
Bye.